Horrifying. That's what Democratic State Representative for Florida's 42nd District, Eskamani, recently called the abortion landscape in Florida, and she joins us now live from Orlando. Good morning to you, and welcome back to the show. You have been warning your constituents for months now about the ban and have been sharing advice on how to navigate the ban, from how to get abortion pills by mail to where to find legal help. What has been the response that you've received and seen firsthand?
Well, thanks again for having me. Right now, Floridians are bracing for impact. Our clinics are working overtime, likely till midnight today, to try to deliver as much care as they can before the 6-week ban goes into effect, a period of time where most people do not realize they're pregnant yet. And with that said, we are emphasizing for Floridians to be ready for the ban, not only to have on hand emergency contraception, pregnancy testing, but to also be familiar with resources like abortion funds and abortionfinder.org, which are going to be websites that can hopefully help you navigate what a 6-week ban will mean for our state.
So this needs 60% support from voters to become law. Do you think you have that number? And do you think that portends anything about what else Florida may do in November when it comes to another issue that will be on the ballot?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we actually have two major ballot initiatives this November, one on recreational cannabis and the other to codify reproductive rights and restore abortion access in our state. When it comes to abortion access, the Yes on 4 campaign, this is a campaign that started out of the ashes of the 6-week ban, and we only launched it in May of last year and already collected nearly 1 million signatures by December, and then went through Supreme Court review. The state attorney general tried to stop us. We won. So I do think this has been a campaign where we have continuously demonstrated not just the support of Floridians, but support of bipartisanship. In fact, more than 35% of Floridians that signed this ballot initiative are registered Republicans. Now, the 60% threshold is challenging. It's one of the highest in the country. But the team Yes on 4 never would have went forward unless we had strong polling to indicate that type of broad-based support. And it's going to be on us to raise the funds, to have the conversations, and to really champion this issue to hit that 60% come November.
So we mentioned leading into you that this ban may not be around for long, but what happens tomorrow to the women health centers and abortion clinics, not just in your district in Orlando, but all around the state?
Well, and I appreciate this question because I know we often talk about the politics of abortion access, and we sometimes don't address the healthcare consequences. And so in this situation, your closest option to access an abortion in Florida is going to be either Virginia or North Carolina.
Okay, it looks like we lost.
Okay, we had a little technical difficulty there. We'll try to get her back for sure. We're just getting to the heart of that conversation. So quick break. Stay with us, everybody. All right, we got the gremlins out of the computer. We think so. Democratic State Rep for Florida's 42nd District, and Eskamani back with us now live from Orlando. Before we went to break, we were talking about just kind of what really happens when this ban goes into effect. And you're making a point that women who live in Florida, now their closest option will be to go to Virginia or North Carolina to get this kind of care, which is so ironic because for so long, post-Roe in this country, Florida became, and I hate the term, but abortion tourism, and I hate the term, but again, that was a refuge for women in the Southeast to go. Now that door is closing. So talk more about the options that pregnant women will have in your state.
Well, the reality is that you're going to either have to travel to access care, which is going to include different type of costs, travel, childcare, cost of the procedure, or you're going to be forced to give birth, or worse, you're going to even turn to unsafe means to end your pregnancy, which can endanger you and your family. I also want to make it clear that abortion is healthcare, which means you have families that have wanted pregnancies where a doctor may not be comfortable providing access to abortion that could save your life. And indeed, we've seen patients be allowed to get more sick before being able to access life-saving care.
And you mentioned something that I think is really important that I think a lot of people miss in this conversation is when you said that, you know, it costs money. You have to have childcare. You have to be able to take time off from work. Explain how laws like this, where people are forced to leave the state, kind of deepen that line of the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, abortion bans impact every single person, but those with means are going to find a way to navigate the confusing policy landscape, to access the care, and to express bodily autonomy, to have a choice in their future. For those who don't have means, this is basically a punishment for being poor. Because the reality is that if you don't have resources, your ability to navigate this landscape, to even understand this landscape, is very difficult, if not impossible. And that's why we have abortion funds and organizations like PlanCpills.org that are trying to provide access and resources in different ways. But when you talk to the National Abortion Hotline, they will tell you that many patients don't even realize what the law around abortion is until they need one. And so the anti-abortion extremists really leverage this point to create as much confusion and stress and ultimately barriers that don't allow someone to make this personal decision.
Is there anything explicit in the ban that punishes providers? Meaning, is there palpable fear amongst the medical community in Florida about how this could impact them and their work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bill's main enforcement are criminal penalties for abortion providers. Of course, there is some grayness in the Florida ban around individuals who help someone end a pregnancy, if they would also be potentially criminalized, or if even the pregnant person themselves would be criminalized. Florida does not provide a black and white protection for the pregnant person who ends their own pregnancy. And so there really is a huge concern in the medical community. Many doctors are leaving the state of Florida. And for those who are OBGYNs, are having to explain to their patients the reality of abortion law. And if there was a situation where someone's life was at risk, it would require approval by 2 doctors. And even then, doctors are hesitant to provide care based on what their lawyers might tell them at the hospital. So it really just creates an environment where politics are interfering in that personal relationship between people and their doctors.
And I was reading an article with the Associated Press, and they said Florida Democrats are hoping that the topic that you mentioned earlier, marijuana and abortion, draw young voters where there is a lot of, there's lower enthusiasm. Do you see that happening in the conversations, especially in that younger demographic?
Well, there is no surprise, at least from my perspective, that a lot of young people are disappointed in the Biden administration right now. And of course, you know, as we speak today, there are protests happening around the country. I'm expressing opposition to many decisions made by the president when it comes to Gaza and the Middle East. And so I think it's important for us to ensure that we're addressing the needs of young people from all perspectives. When it comes to abortion and cannabis, without a doubt, we will see diverse support for these initiatives. But I do worry about, one, making this issue partisan, because at the end of the day, we're not going to get to 60% if we make these issues partisan. But 2, there will be young people that vote for abortion access, but also don't vote for president, don't vote for other positions. So I think it's really important to speak to voters as holistic individuals and don't just look at it from a myopic perspective.
And the one thing we've learned in post-Roe America, obviously, is that when the issue of abortion rights is put before voters, not just the folks at the state capitol, they tend to support abortion rights across party lines, even in red states, even in conservative states. And Florida is certainly an interesting state, politically always has been. So we'll see what November brings for more than one reason. Rep. Anna Eskamani, thanks so much for your time and insight this morning. We certainly appreciate it. Please come back as things progress.
Thanks for having me.